This is not any kind of mission accomplished moment. It just means we've avoided a catastrophe.
And on that cheery note, Colorado reopens. Some of Colorado. The governor takes his foot off the brake and warns Coloradans he doesn't want to have to pull this state over again. So we'll go to a city where one half is following one public health order and the other half is following another. Mix of rules is going to be how Colorado rolls for a while. Let's look at how we can reopen the economic spigot. How businesses that lost out on the first round of aid can get some help this time. And a next viewer shares what she won't take for granted anymore. It's the guy living in her basement. All that is next. Governor Jared Polis said today that new cases of COVID-19 have dropped to the level that Colorado is ready to move out of the stay-home stage. The governor said that the key is going to be convincing people this is not just some free-for-all.
But if we slack off, if Coloradans let up, if less people are wearing masks when they're in public, if stores aren't being careful and personal services aren't being careful about following the guidelines that we put out today, then it's likely that additional restrictions might have to come back. Our gains will be lost.
It is also clear today that Weld County has basically called the governor's bluff. Any business in Weld County can reopen today, even though that county continues to be a COVID-19 hotspot. A Democratic governor says that what the Republican commissioners up there are doing is against the law, but it is quite clear that the governor does not have a way to stop Weld County. The state relies on local authorities to actually do the enforcement on these public health orders. So the governor's only apparent tool seems to be threatening individual business owners that if they reopen in direct defiance of the state's public health orders, that they might lose their licenses. So now that Weld County has shown that the governor cannot stop them from going rogue, the real question becomes how many other counties decide that they will do the same. Today we learned that Colorado is going to get some reopen buddies. Going to join California and Oregon and Washington in what's called the Western States Pact. Colorado and Nevada are the new additions to that group. Basically, it's a bunch of Democratic governors who are going to share information on what they think is working and what isn't. Colorado is moving now to protect vulnerable people who may be ordered back to work by their employers. An executive order says that from the governor says that at-risk people cannot be forced back into workplaces close to others. State says that it's also making clear that if somebody quits a job because they do not feel that it is safe due to COVID-19, that those people can get unemployment. Previously, that was going to be on a case-by-case basis.
No vulnerable individual can be compelled by their employer to return to work if the work requires in-person work near others and puts that employee at risk. If the work can be done remotely, employers need to accommodate vulnerable individuals with remote work options.
State is encouraging employers to prioritize work-from-home setups for people who either live with a vulnerable individual or people who don't have another child care option. The governor was asked today how the state is going to provide either support or resources to people who would be intimidated to have that difficult conversation with an employer. And the governor pivoted to one of his frequent talking points about how people who are self-employed have to decide for themselves whether they can afford to sit out of work right now. So Colorado has this patchwork of various public health orders and stay-home orders right now. A patchwork meaning that you can stand in one spot in Colorado, have one foot in one jurisdiction with one set of rules, another foot in a different jurisdiction with a different set of rules. Our Marshall Zellinger takes us to Erie, specifically to County Line Road.
Roads. They're more than just how to get from A to B. They can create divisions, rivalries of sorts. Take County Line Road in Erie, the separating line between the Boulder County part of Erie and the Weld County part, the line between one set of public health rules and another.
I don't think I would call it terribly confusing.
Adam Haid is a town trustee, perhaps too trusting that you know the rules depending on what side of the street you're standing on. Until May 8th, Boulder County will be under the stay-at-home order, which we've been used to for more than a month. Starting today, Weld County calls its method Safer at Work. The county commissioners have said, we didn't tell the businesses to close. We're not the ones to tell them when they can or cannot open. Tomorrow, Erie trustees will. They plan to vote on a resolution telling the Weld County side of Erie, the downtown side, to stick with the state's safer at home order with a timeline of when businesses can reopen.
That way, if there are any lawsuits, we can point to a legal piece of paperwork that we have put together in order to state our intentions.
During his news conference this afternoon, Governor Polis made it clear again, this time with a graphic, that a county has three options: match the state's safer at home order, be more restrictive like Boulder County and Denver's continued stay at home, or get the state's permission to be more flexible, which Weld County has not yet done.
Weld County is not yet there. They are a viral hotspot. They have not yet had 14 days of decreasing virus count in Weld County.
If a county allows businesses to open earlier than the state's timeline without permission, that business can be shut down with their license revoked, and the county could miss out on COVID-19 funding controlled by the state.
So what is the COVID-19 preparedness grant? It's written into the executive order as money that can be withheld from counties that don't follow the state's timeline, at least without permission. I reached out to the state health department late this morning, Kyle. I reached out to the governor's office this afternoon. No immediate answer on what that money is, where it comes from, what it could be withheld for, what it could be used for. Still waiting to find out.
And Marshall, when it comes to the idea that there are side-by-side jurisdictions with different orders and that can sometimes confuse people, you will hear Governor Polis say, you know, that's not a bug, that's a feature. That's the way that Colorado is designed to work with local control.
Local control, and in some cases home rule cities like the city of Denver, it works for certain things without confusion. This is one thing you don't want any confusion about, and with three different possible sets of rules in that area, it just doesn't seem like an average person would know just where they're standing, what rule to abide by.
All right. Marshall Zellinger has taken the jacket off. It's that hot, folks. If you're curious how warm it was today, it is jacketless Marshall Zellinger warm outside. Thank you, sir. So you got city of Aurora. Aurora straddles three different counties. Not usually a big deal for its public health orders because Adams and Arapahoe and Douglas counties are all under the auspices of Tri-County Health. But then Tri-County decided to let Douglas County break away and reopen today. Adams and Arapahoe are under stay-home orders until May 8th. Last month, you may recall, Republican leaders in Douglas County threatened to fire their own public health officials when they suggested a stay-home order. So now Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman, who is a Republican himself, is not at all having this whole carve-out for Douglas County. He says it's politics, and he lit up Tri-County Health on Twitter. Health Department says this decision was based on the lower number of cases in DougCo. Then you got the city of Brighton, partly in Adams County, stay-home order, partly in Wild West Weld County. Brighton's Mayor Greg Mills is asking Tri-County Health to let all of the city operate under Weld County's looser standard. Mayor Mills told us over the weekend he's not cavalier about the threat of COVID-19. He said he lost his own father to the virus, but that he thinks his city is ready to reopen. Colorado has now passed 700 deaths in the fight against COVID-19. Last update from the state says 706. Nearly 14,000 people have tested positive. The number of people in the hospital has dropped a bit, 776 currently. 53 have gone home or been transferred in the last day. So returning to today's theme, the reopening of Colorado. To paraphrase the philosopher poets of AC/DC, for those about to work, we salute you. For everyone in Colorado who is reopening today, we hope that you will show us how it's done, how reopening can be done safely. We are rooting for you like our lives depend on it, because statistically, some of them do. We are rooting for you like our freedom depends on it, because counties that are stuck under stay-home orders are not about to lift them if the reopening process turns into a goat rodeo. If you are living in a county relatively untouched by COVID-19 and reopening today, congratulations, and I hope it stays that way. If you are living in the county that is a COVID-19 hotspot and is still reopening today, we are rooting for you too, because we know that the cost of failure will fall on the most vulnerable in the community. If you're in a part of Colorado that's reopening today, we salute you, and we are rooting for your success, because that means that the rest of us are going to be able to follow along just as soon as conditions allow. Well, you can choose your idiom of choice. Getting Colorado's economy up and running again is not going to happen overnight, not in the blink of an eye. It's not like the flip of a light switch. Choose whichever one you want. But what we choose to do right now, it still matters. Our Chris Vanderveen offers the context of the economic spigot.
Think of it like a spigot. Turn it on all the way and growth inevitably follows. Last year's water flowed freely. Our economy grew $21.2 trillion worth of goods and services. And then this year, a virus began turning our daily personal interactions into a poison. Worried about infections overwhelming the medical system, states started closing the spigot in an effort to choke the virus. A once roaring economy turned into a trickle, and unemployment surged by 22 million in just 4 weeks. This is the reality governors now face as they contemplate how far to turn the spigot, how much to reopen the economy. The first turns are likely to be slow, measured. Some businesses would reopen, but not all. Many who work at home would still work at home. Here's the problem. Turn it too much, and the virus has room to return. Hospitalizations and deaths could spike once again. Turn it too little, and the economy continues to sputter. Unemployment fails to go down. More businesses close for good. It's why you're likely to see incremental turns of that spigot. Turn it a little, see what happens. Turn it a little more, see what happens. Find the right amount of turning to grow the economy, not the virus. A challenge indeed for an economy in need of so much more than a trickle to keep it going.
For everyone keeping Colorado's animals safe, be it at shelters or zoos or vet clinics and such, you got to know Colorado appreciates you. Jen wrote in reminding us that not all animals live at home with some human, and that those who do still need vet care, even in the midst of a pandemic. And you know, even the animals start to go crazy if they don't have their normal routine. That's why they're taking flamingos on walks at the Denver Zoo. Shame we can't go there, because that would probably be pretty fun to see. All right, who deserves our next statewide shout out here for keeping our state functioning during a difficult time? You know how to get in touch with me, and I'll give the shout out to everybody else.
He cooks when we're not around, and then he goes back down in the basement.
At least the guy in the basement helps out with the cooking, but his family actually wants to see him again. That's next. I want to return you to that story from our Steve Steger about the...
It was frustrating.
And I got 6 people, and all I want to do is just keep them employed. And
Daryl Waddell told us about it almost 2 weeks ago. The failed attempt to get a PPP loan for his small business, Hinsdale Automotive. His national bank turned him down in a disorganized process. But it doesn't change the reality. Business is down 60% here at this auto shop in Centennial. He hopes the second time is the charm.
Last week, they did send out a notice that we can start applying through them.
This time, he's applying through a different financial institution, Canvas Credit Union.
We knew when the second round of funding came through that we were going to be able to offer these loans to our members.
Chief Loan Officer Chad Shane says Canvas missed out on PPP loans the first time around, too. They weren't ready to issue them.
That first go around was tough because we didn't have everything in place to be able to offer those loans, whether it was the technology, the loan documents, the access to the SBA system.
They do now, and they started preparing applications for members like Daryl before Congress even approved the refill of the fund last week.
There's a tremendous amount of volume.
Canvas alone has more than 400 applications prepared for $20 million in loans. Only about 5% of them had been accepted by midday, as the government was slow to process them. His advice to businesses: get moving.
Do this as quickly as possible. We want to get your application in so we can start working on it.
Waddell's advice: get to know your banker.
Get on a personal relationship with them. Kind of stay away from big bank.
So Canvas says the whole first time around, the whole problem that first time around was just everything happened so quickly. They couldn't get everything in order to be able to even issue those loans in the first place, Kyle. They say this time around, they know the rules, they have the access to the systems, and that's how they can get those loans turned around for people this time around.
Glad to hear it, and glad to see you again. I thought we'd lost you forever, Steve.
I must have hit a switch or something. I don't know.
I'm in my basement, you're in your house. What could go wrong? All right, thank you, sir. We've been sharing some pretty emotional stories of what Coloradans are telling us they will never take for granted again. Katie Starrett says what she won't take for granted is her husband. He's been living in the basement.
We're really lucky that we have all this open area behind us because I can't even imagine being in an apartment building with two boys.
Yeah.
Come on, Holden.
His name is Holden.
Yeah, we separated my husband from the family. He's a pilot, and we just felt like for the safety of our kids, it just seemed like, you know, the right thing to do. I mean, I don't know what's right. I definitely know what's wrong. And it didn't feel like we were making smart decisions unless we moved him into the basement.
I miss him, and I really wish I could eat with him sometimes.
You know, I think they just miss him on a regular daily basis. We eat meals apart over FaceTime. He cooks when we're not around, so I kind of vacate the house. And then he goes back down in the basement, and that's pretty much where he's been for close to 6 weeks. My instincts are to like touch him, hug him, and you can't do any of that. We just miss normal family life, eating together, playing games together, watching TV, fighting, whatever.
Hugging him.
We haven't even gone downstairs in 6 weeks. I'm sure it's not as clean as I like it. You know, we're just trying to make the best of this. I would love to have it end, though.
Another reminder that for so many Coloradans, this is such a highly individualized experience. We're talking about being in this together, but individual families are in really different types of situations. A lot of folks getting creative to stay safe. You get the final word and feedback next. Feedback tonight comes from Janet Brown on Twitter, who wrote in during the show to say, why are you so critical of the mayor and governor? Janet says, I mostly really like your show, but it's obvious you don't like either of them. Janet, asking questions of elected officials is my job. It's not about liking or disliking anybody. I also think we've seen a lot of decisions from both the mayor and the governor, so there's a lot to pick through. That's why we've been talking about them a lot lately. And Julie says, next is a silver lining of staying at home during COVID, being able to watch. I really appreciate that. Thank you for spending some time with us. See you next time.